This is the Post Shift Podcast, a raw look at the hospitality industry. Welcome back, Post Shifters, to another episode, obviously, of the Post Shift Podcast. I'm your host, Shawn Soole. Very obvious that if you're listening to this, you probably know my name by now. Well, very hopefully. And if you don't know my name by now and you're listening for the very first time, welcome to the Post Shift Podcast. This episode is episode number 34 of the podcast, but also episode number 5 of the Toronto Cocktail Conference sessions. And I was very lucky enough back in August to visit Toronto, one of my favorite cities in Canada, and experience the Toronto Cocktail Conference again. Josh and Jess and Gord and John, just amazing people that organize this event. And this year they asked me to be the official podcaster, which for someone who's only been podcasting for 9 months, it was very surreal and very humbling that they asked me to do that. And I basically just set up my studio in my hotel room and just brought friends and mentors and people in the industry that I really look up to come up and interview. And so I ended up doing 13 podcasts for the entire 2 days, which was intense speaking. It was basically like doing seminars all day long. But this episode here is with one of my favorite, nicest people, who is Paul Clarke, who is the executive editor of the Imbibe magazine. And if you're in North America and you don't know what Imbibe magazine is, you really should go out and find out and figure out what you can get, because he is an amazing writer, leader, speaker. I really just was lucky enough to sit down and talk with him, because at the end of the day, I'm still always going to be the Australian country boy that moved to Canada and was lucky enough to become best friends with people like Paul Clarke and Philip Duff and Gary Reagan and all these like stalwarts of the industry that I now get to call friends. So I really hope you enjoy this episode. It was one of my favorite episodes because he's such a quiet, sort of reserved guy, but he is just an epic, like, pillar of our community and has helped us so much to build a cocktail culture like it is. So I really hope you enjoy this episode, guys. Have a good week. Bye.
But with the podcast, I keep it pretty fluid.
Okay.
I usually just roll into it.
Okay, cool.
Keeps it pretty easy and light and fresh. So usually I just start by just asking, like, how about you introduce yourself?
Okay, fantastic. Well, I'm Paul Clarke. I'm the executive editor of Imbibe magazine, and I've been a cocktail and spirits journalist for close to 15 years now.
Wow. How'd you get into it? Like, I sat down with Christine Gismondo and Steve Beaumont today and asked the same questions.
Yeah, it's almost totally by accident. I was working as a journalist before, and you just kind of look around for what's interesting to you. What do you want to devote years and years of your life to? And somehow I just kind of came across cocktails at one point. I think I was just surfing around online, came across the Drink Boy forum. This would have been probably around 2002, 2003 or so.
I've mentioned the lack of internet and smartphones a number of times when people start talking about the starts of their careers.
Exactly.
And the Drink Boy forum,
right?
dial up, the whole shebang.
All that stuff. And within that first week, I came across Dave Wondrich and Dr. Cocktail, and that just kind of set things rolling. And also keeping in mind that, back then, 2002, 2003, it was still, the whole cocktail thing was still relatively in its infancy. So it was totally possible to go to Amazon and pick up a copy of David Embury for $10.
Yeah.
So,
those were the days.
Yeah. So that helped. And, after less than a month of just kind of like checking it out and checking out some books and looking around online, I was hooked. I was absolutely hooked.
Really?
Yeah.
What was it was it just from a journalist standpoint, like doing that research, and then all of a sudden the research starts snowballing and snowballing and snowballing? It
was partially that. The wonderful thing about spirits and cocktails, then as now, and going back to as long as there have been cocktails, it goes with stories. It goes so well with stories. We can talk for days on end about the different kinds of rum that you can use in a daiquiri and the proper daiquiri construction, but really, the story of cocktails is the story of bars and the story of people, and that is endlessly fascinating. And it just gives you so many directions, and they're colorful stories. They're interesting stories. There's you get into some dull avenues. Any kind of research leads in that direction, but they're fascinating stories. They're fun stories with real people, some great history, and it's just interesting. It's lively. It keeps you engaged.
Does it keep you engaged even after 15 years? Like even after really go back in 2000, 2003, there's Dave Wondrich, but Dave Wondrich wasn't Dave Wondrich, and Ted Haig wasn't Ted Haig until they started publishing books and stuff. So the amount of information that's come out in the last 20 years, or almost 20 years, does it keep you engaged and keep you hungry for the next story and the next little...
It does somewhat. I mean, I have had to adjust my thinking, partially just to keep myself engaged, because if you keep doing anything over and over and over, year after year, it gets dull. And so the thing I have to remind myself was that initial engagement of the people aspect. And that's really where it's developed over the last 15 years, because, what it started with, little things in London and New York and so on, this is now metastasized. It's worldwide. You can go to small towns, smaller cities, all over the world and find cocktail scene, something interesting going on. And so that's what I find that keeps engaging me is finding the people who are doing interesting things, bringing their own kind of creativity to the mix, their own stories to it. That's what keeps me engaged.
In a city of 10,000 people.
Yeah. And actually, I mean, it is one, I grew up in the middle of nowhere. I grew up in Oklahoma, in a rural community. So it really thrills me to see smaller cities doing something cool. When you go somewhere, I remember a couple of years ago, I was brought into Tulsa, Oklahoma to judge a cocktail competition that they do for a charity event for the local art museum, and. I remember the first night in town, went into this one bar, and looked at the back bar, looked at the menu and thought, somebody's been doing their homework here. This feels like a Chicago bar. Yeah. And it was an amazing bar. It was Valkyrie in Tulsa, Oklahoma. They had an amazing cocktail program going on, and it just blew my mind. It really made me satisfied, to go to Tulsa and have a bona fide daiquiri.
Awesome. Yeah. That's fantastic. Yeah. So, when you sort of found the Drink Boy forum and you started researching and stuff like that, you started your own website. What year was that?
Yeah, so I started the Cocktail Chronicles in 2005. So it took me a couple of years just of reading and personal research before kind of realized that there was a direction I could go with this. I wanted to write. I knew from the very start that this was something I wanted to write about. It took me a couple of years just get the information and the background and the understanding, the foundations together. In order to do that in an engaging and convincing manner. And I realized in 2005, after sending out a few pitches to editors that didn't really go anywhere, because cocktail journalism at that time was still very, it was basically Gary Ring and Dave Wondrich and William Hamilton at that time in the New York Times. And it was very, very limited. Yeah. So I thought I'll do the website, the blog, basically as an online portfolio to show, A, I know something about cocktails and history and how all of this stuff goes together, and B, I know how to write about it in an engaging manner. Yeah. So it was something to put out there that editors would come across or that I could point them to and show them my work and then build professionally. And that's pretty much exactly how it worked.
Did you have a regular job as well as doing the Cocktail Chronicles?
Yeah, I was working at a travel magazine in Seattle, just as an editor at a travel magazine that had zero interest in running any kind of cocktail coverage.
Which is weird now because every travel magazine's got pages devoted to cocktail.
Absolutely, and the thing is, when I see that magazine now, they have a dedicated column to cocktails. Like, okay, 15 years ago I offered, but,
Well, then I think sometimes. People ask me, oh, how do you get this? How do you get that? I was like, just ask. Mm-hmm. And you ask and you ask and you ask. You email them and you drop them a link to something and go, I remember a number of times some projects where I just sat up till 4 a.m, writing to every single magazine to start writing for them. And if they said no, great, move on to the next one and keep going from there. So Cocktail Chronicles became, I would say, pretty popular.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really surprising at the time. And so this was May of 2005 when I launched it. This was at the golden era of food blogs, but at the time, nobody was doing anything dedicated cocktail-wise. And then right about that time, like in the next few months, you saw a number of things coming online. And so just in that first 6 months or so, Darcy O'Neill here in Ontario, Jeff Morgenthaler, came across him at some point, a handful of other people who, now, here we are years later and, running into each other in different parts of the world at these different events.
Because I think 2005, 2006 is when Facebook started.
Yeah, it was. I think so. I mean, I was slow to get on Facebook. It took me a couple of years, but it was really before. This was social media at the time.
Like now, blogs are Instagram posts and
exactly.
YouTube videos and stuff like that.
Right.
Like they're not the heavy, well-written sort of things they were back then. So you had Cocktail Chronicles. I remember. I think the very first time I met you was in Seattle at Liberty, and I think Andrew Friedman introduced you as the only drink journalist that gets paid for what he does. Because obviously journalism, especially something that's so niche, very rarely gets the credit, and you get the credit, but it's the exposure that counts.
Right.
It's all about the exposure. And I think that's how he introduced you. Was like, this is Paul Clarke. He's the only journalist that gets paid for what he does.
Right. It was. I mean, it was interesting. Like when I first started, my goal was, I'm going to get paid for this somehow. When I was doing the blog, and I think again, it was just kind of fortuitous timing in that about less than 6 months after I started the blog, a friend of mine who was an art director at the magazine I was working at the time, and who knew of my interests, came over and said, "Did you know that there's a drinks magazine launching in Portland, Oregon?" Because he had come across a job advertisement somewhere. And I looked up, and initially I just thought he was messing with me. I thought he was, just...
You mean a magazine completely dedicated to drinks?
Yeah, right. You almost got me that time. And so I looked it up, and, thought, this is kind of exactly what I'm looking for. So I sent off my resume and drove down to Portland, Oregon from Seattle. Met with Karen Foley, the publisher of Imbibe. This would have been the fall of 2005. Interviewed for the job that I have now. Did not get hired, but
really,
I did not get the job. But I got picked up as a freelancer for issue number 1, which came out in I believe that was the March-April issue. If I'm remembering, no, May-June issue of 2006. And I've been with Imbibe ever since. And I came on, so I was writing with Imbibe since issue number 1, and came on as the editor almost 6 years ago.
Is it that long ago? Really?
Yeah, it's if I'm doing my math correct.
I think that's about right.
Almost 6 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And so Imbibe really is like I would say the pinnacle of all drinks writing for North America.
That's definitely the goal. That's what we aim for. And I mean, again, the timing coming out in 2006 like that. If you went into a bookstore and you looked at the shelf, the only kind of cocktail coverage you're going to find is, maybe like in the holiday issue of a food magazine. That was typically, where it wound up. Or, summer, here's a rum drink. There was nothing dedicated to spirits and cocktails. And keeping in mind that Imbibe also does wine and beer and coffee and tea and everything across, the bibulous spectrum. But cocktails is kind of where, that was where we distinguished ourselves early on, I think. Because there was nothing like that. Now you look, and there are a number of publications, online publications, things of that nature. Some of them are excellent, but like we really kind of paved the way for a lot of that, and I think we do continue, and I'm proud that we continue to uphold that banner of really the best drinks writing in the country.
Do you find it difficult in this modern age to keep, even though we've got so much information available to us, we're less knowledgeable than we used to be. So do you find it difficult to be really super plugged in because trends come and go real quick and 6-month cycles, and because you guys only publish every 3 months, right?
We publish every 2 months, so 6 times a year. And that's the thing. Things happen so quickly, and especially with online media being so prevalent, that's really kind of surfing the trend wave. We did that for a number of years, and we continue, of course, obviously, to focus on what's new, what's upcoming, what's current. A lot of that we do in our online coverage, a lot of that we do in print. However, being a print publication gives us, you could look at it as an obstacle where, for example, right now we're talking right now in mid-August, and I'm working on Christmas issue, where you're working that far in advance, so anything that happens between now and November is not going to be in that Christmas issue. But it does give us a luxury that we can think apart from that trend wave. I can get off of that that roller coaster for a minute and kind of look, take a bigger picture look. And especially in the last few years, ever since we passed our 10th anniversary issue a few years ago, we have started realizing that the drinks world is significantly different from the way it was when we started. It used to be we would run articles on, here's what rye whiskey is, or here are different kinds of American gin. We still do stuff like that because you still have people who are coming into the loop and still, and this is their first exposure to this stuff. But we can look at deeper stories, and again, bringing it back to what I said earlier about people being the foundation of this, we can look at things like drinks culture, the way, for example, immigrants have always played a part in the American bar and the American cocktail experience, especially at such a politically loaded time in our nation's history. And in global history, we can talk about things like immigration. We can talk about things like climate change and winemaking. We can look at some of these deeper stories that really resonate on a larger way with our culture, and that is the luxury we have as a print publication, looking at that, and the luxury we have from having built up this reputation among writers and among our readers to come along with us, and then to know that we're going to look at this in a very calm, balanced, and understanding way.
It's just not a whimsical summer issue. I've enjoyed the more deeper, like in the last couple of years, the more deeper things about coffee culture and like fair trade and all this, like really deep conversations about fair trade and how it affects.
Exactly, and and to be fair, we still, absolutely, we still run, here are 8 great summer drink recipes because everybody wants great summer drink recipes. I want great summer drink recipes. We do tons of that stuff and new beer styles and things of that nature. But we want to make sure that we take advantage of that opportunity to work in something that's a little bit more serious, or has a little bit more gravity, or offers a little bit greater insight into our drinks culture in some way. Because again, we have a really unique platform, and we have found that our readers are ready for that. And we also view our jobs as journalists. We are not isolated from the things going on in the rest of the world. And so we need to bring that into our coverage as long as we look at it in a balanced fashion and make sure that our readers are satisfied at the end of the day.
I think the big question that is on my mind right now, just thinking about, is like, with being print media, we all keep hearing, I think I was at the gym the other day and CNN was talking about how many paid newspapers have shut down. They picked this random little city in North Carolina and said, like, 200 papers have shut down in North Carolina. I'm like, why North Carolina of all places? But being print media, and you're saying about the online presence and really solid websites and things, is Imbibe still as impactful as a print medium as it once was, or as all print media once was? Are you still seeing like growth in sales, and there's still solid people getting subscriptions to the print version and stuff like that? Not everybody's transferring over to online.
Oh, absolutely. And again, I think this is where we kind of have a luxury of having both, because just because we're a print publication doesn't mean we have to give up online. We have a dedicated digital editor, Emma Jansen. We have daily online coverage. We have a very vibrant social media presence, and we're actively engaged online in digital media. But the print publication is kind of that's the ship. That's what's guiding everything, and it gives us a couple of opportunities, like I said, to go into some of these deeper stories, longer ranging stories. But also keep in mind, Imbibe has always been a very visually oriented magazine. We have amazing photography, and I can take no credit for that. We have amazing staff and an amazing art director who take care of all of that. And that is something that honestly you just don't get online. You don't get the same kind of tactile satisfaction from scrolling on your iPad as you do from going through this glossy magazine with vivid photography with great writing coming out. And so to answer your question, absolutely, our numbers continue going up. Our circulation and subscribers keep going up.
That's awesome.
We have a really firm foundation, and even when the national or the global economy, go through their ripples as they have a number of times during the time that we've been around. One thing that we found is that in good times, people drink. In
Yeah.
bad times, people drink. So they always come to us. We've been fine. It hasn't touched us at all. So yeah, even as local newspapers, close, which is a tragedy, because we really desperately need that kind of local news coverage going on, especially in today's kind of political climate. But we take our responsibility seriously, and we take, and I take my responsibility seriously that, here's a print publication in a world that's stacked against us. How do we remain vivid, and how do we remain engaging, and continue to direct people to pick that up?
What's excited you this year? Like, there's a bar show every week now. Literally in every single city, all over the world, every single week there's a bar show going on somewhere.
Right.
What's exciting you in the industry right now, personally?
There are a few things. To take one step and look at the spirits world, rum is having an amazing moment right now. The world of rum is it's really vivid on a story basis, and really vivid on a consumer basis of what we're seeing in North America and in Europe, in terms of now in the U.S. we're seeing Jamaican rums that you just never saw. But not only is it a greater diversity of product coming in, but it comes back to that whole aspect of story and people getting a better understanding of what Jamaican rum actually is. Same with Barbados rum. Same with the sugarcane spirits coming out of Mexico that are coming to the U.S. now, where now it's become a much more vivid world. It's really cool for bartenders to have this stuff to work with. It's really great for consumers and for rum drinkers like myself to come across this stuff in the market. But also, as a journalist, there are cool stories there. So that's something that I'm really enjoying working on right now. Likewise, when we look domestically at stuff going in the United States with our craft distilling industry, it's reaching a stage of maturation now, because it used to be we were apologetic for a lot of the craft spirits coming out, like, okay, that was
this
rough
gin I got
whiskey.
from Colorado,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, exactly. And it was only $60. And it used to be that way for a long time. And, I can't say the prices have gone down a lot, but the quality definitely has gone up in some circles, where there are amazing craft spirits coming out of some circles. To go back to my rum piece, Privateer rum in Massachusetts, just amazing stuff coming out of that from a craft distillery in Massachusetts. In my hometown of Seattle, Westland Whiskey, they're making an American single malt that is just astounding. Earning these kind of global followings for their stuff. So, looking at what's going on in craft distilling as it kind of matures, whether it's single malt whiskey or American brandy, because that's a really active category right now, and there's some really cool stuff.
I'm digging American brandy right now.
Yeah, there's some really good stuff coming out of California now. We're seeing stuff from other parts of the country. It's going to be something to keep an eye on. So those are some things I'm really enjoying. As I said earlier, I love seeing smaller markets and non-traditional cities coming into the cocktail circuit. One of the cities we always talked about for years is San Francisco, which is, of course, they're one of the hallmarks of the cocktail renaissance. About a year ago, I went to Oakland, just right across the bay, and man, Oakland is really going on right now, and because it's like the cost of a liquor license is a fraction of that in San Francisco, and also since it's much cheaper, relatively cheaper to live there than in San Francisco. That's where a lot of bartenders and staff live. So they think, well, why the hell don't I just make life easier for myself and open a bar over here? So you have this amazing cocktail culture going on across the bay now. That's really cool to see, as well as in smaller cities and in other cities around the world, where you kind of see them taking the cocktail experience and integrating their own kind of local drinks culture into it. So you get these things in places like Berlin, or I'm heading to Buenos Aires in a couple of months, and I'm really excited to see what's going on there.
Nice.
Or Singapore, where you are, and to see how these things are coming together, and every place is kind of putting their own little stamp on it.
What's your favorite bar show in the world? Do you have one?
It's to be honest, I don't go to a lot of bar shows simply because it's not really what I'm looking for. Yeah. That said, I'm heading back to Berlin in a couple of months for Bar Convent.
That one's a beast.
That's an amazing show.
It is. Like I remember doing Bar Convent a couple of years ago, and coming from Canada, being super governmentally restricted on everything, and you show up and the bars are just like the installs and the activations are just mental.
Yeah.
And I was there with Fenner Bronca, and like we got a cocktail menu and stuff. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm only giving everybody like a 2-ounce pour, like what it would be like pretty much any show in North America. Like you're not giving a full cocktail, right? It's like, oh no, full cocktail, just full cocktails.
Right.
And I'm like, you serious? Like bartenders are going to come here for 8 hours drinking full cocktails?
Right.
And like the setups were like running water and proper drains. And I'm like, okay, we'll do full cocktails. Yeah. And the place is just packed out with bartenders from all over the world drinking full cocktails, so it gets messy at the end of the day most of the time. But yeah, it is a massive show.
It's absolutely massive, and one of the things I loved about it is, like you said, I'm coming in from the United States and seeing lots of these small distillers that only distribute in Europe, where I'm tasting spirits that I would never come across again. And some of it was just astounding. Last year when I was there, I was working on a big package feature for the magazine about gin, and so I was just like tasting every single gin that I could come across at Bar Convent, and there were some astounding gins. I got so much material to work with. This year, of course, they're focusing on rum. That's the stage of focus for Bar Convent Berlin, and being a dedicated rum drinker myself, I'm really excited about some of the stuff that I'm looking forward to tasting while I'm there. But yeah, that's an amazing show, and I mean Bar Convent in Brooklyn, much smaller in scale, but still the same kind of aim, the same kind of quality going on with it. So I've been really excited. They've only done that 2 years now in the U.S., but it's now on my circuit. I look forward to that, to going to that all year.
So what are you going to Buenos Aires for?
I'm going. So it's I'm probably going to mispronounce the name, but it's BAC Inspira, which is a bartender conference in Buenos Aires. I'm going to go down and talk about drink trends and kind of what's going on in the world of cocktails. I have 2 speaking sessions that will be actually next month in September, and this will be my first trip to Buenos Aires, so I'm really excited about checking out the city. Yeah.
Nice. So what's next? What outside of bar shows and that's the thing? What's the next 6 months for you is just a little bit of travel, running for Imbibe. Any personal projects?
I don't have any personal projects going on at this time. Working with Imbibe and the bar shows and things of that nature are taking up a lot of my professional time. So really, just my kids are getting older, so spending a little time with them. Actually, sending my son off to college in September. So enjoying having a slightly emptier house, I suppose. But I don't have any other books or anything like that I'm working on, which check in a year, see what's going on. But right now, it's nice to just focus on what's going on in the magazine. Yeah, exactly. And really, right now, like I said, we're looking at our holiday issue, but I'm thinking for 2020. I'm planning all next year for the magazine, what we're going to do. And so those are the wheels going around in my head right now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you sitting down with me. I know that TOCC is always crazy busy for everybody, and I think I've still got 3 more podcasts to do today.
Okay.
Yeah, 3 more. 3 more should do it.
Right.
So, thank you very much, sir. Cheers, thank you.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Thanks, guys. I hope you enjoyed that episode. I really enjoy sitting down with friends and people who I haven't met before, or mentors, or people I idolize, and fanboy out a little bit. I really hope you enjoy the episodes and everything you get from them, because I'm just going to keep loving doing them, and they're just going to keep happening. But I recently started working with Beyond Footwear out of Toronto. Beyond Footwear is, if you've looked at my Instagram or my social media, my fantastic shoes that I wear around. My pink flamingos get a lot of attention, but I've started working with them as their brand ambassador. So if you go to beyondfootwear.com, so BIION footwear.com, and order a pair of shoes and type in my name, and hopefully if you're listening to this podcast you know how to spell my name, you'll get 20% off a pair of shoes. I really enjoy them. They're comfy as hell. I travel in them, I work in them, I do absolutely everything in them, and I really enjoy working with these guys. It's an amazing company out of Toronto, and I'm thankful that I have been given the opportunity to be a brand ambassador. So I want to thank everybody for the support for the podcast. I want to thank everybody for following along on social media, and if you want a cool gangster pair of shoes, you've got to have a pair of Beyonds. See you guys. Bye.